Good morning, Trix here, clinical psychologist at the Foxerie. Welcome back to episode 3, where we're exploring the dynamics of social confidence. In the last episode, we talked about ego development. We're going to continue ego development. You need to understand this if you want to understand social confidence. In fact, most psychology you can explain with ego psychology. So, in the last episode, we talked about some of the dynamics of how the ego forms. We're going to quickly revisit that. So let's put a little character here. This is a little infant. Okay, the big nose. That's what kids have. And the infant is reaching out, touching something. What is this? This is a wall. That's what it is. Okay. Just touching the wall like that. The infant is getting some kind of feedback from the wall, we could say. Just here. Like, let's just circle it. This is the point of touch of the wall. And what it does, it sends, according to science at least, it sends a signal back down here. That little sound is also the sound of a nerve firing, just if you're wondering. It goes into the infant's brain. And there's the infant's brain right there. Brains are green, if you didn't know. Well, the moldy ones are. Okay. And it gives a kind of, we'll call it a feedback. There's something there. We also know that the infant can't go through the wall. So we're going to call this wall a barrier, a limit, or a boundary is another good word for it. So the infant is discovering physical boundaries to the infant's universe and is receiving boundary feedback up into the moldy brain here. That's one type of boundary. And we also explored in the previous episode the idea of a conceptual or, what do you call it, mental boundary. So here's the infant again, a little bit larger this time, nose a little bit smaller. We'll put unhappy face on infant. Why is infant unhappy? Infant is reaching, once again, reaching. Infants like to reach for the shiny object. Here's the shiny thing that the infant wants. And over here is, let's go for this color here, parent, bigger head, obviously. Parents have big heads, everyone knows that. Saying no to the infant. There's no physical barrier here. This is a psychological barrier, you could say. So a kind of, there we go, there's the sound of a psychological barrier, that little sound I just made. Something there. The infant's not allowed to go across it. Does that make sense? Over here, actual boundary, puts hand on wall, cannot go through wall because does not have superpowers yet. And then here, conceptual boundary. Parent says no, can't have the shiny infant, won't cross the barrier if the infant's well behaved. Not all infants are well behaved, but in this case, yeah. Okay, so let's just get rid of that for a sec. All right. So what's going on here? Let's go back to the model of the ego. Actually, let's not go red. I want to go black. Here we go. There's the model we used before. We're returning to it now. And here is all the boundaries coming in like this. No, the word no, rules, physical boundaries, walls, lava, molten lava. Don't you hate it when you're trying to go to work and there's molten lava? You can't cross it. It's a boundary. And what all these boundaries do, these are like external pressures, you could say. Some of them are real, meaning walls. Some of them are imagined, meaning rules. All pushing back into this imagined center. Remember, it's an imagined center. And this becomes the core of the ego, which we discussed in the last episode, which is also you. This is how you are born. This is how you are created. This is a very important point too. You are not born when the body is born. You are built. You are made. And why are you made? Because you have to develop from all these boundaries, which begins to solidify this edge or sense of an edge to you. So in here is you, and here is the world. Or you could just say others or otherness, whatever that is to you. Something not you, basically. Okay, so let's just get rid of this diagram. The next thing we need to kind of get our head around is the forces inside of you, or force singular. This gets a little bit more conceptual, so let's go back to, here's the infant, normal nose, neutral expression, and I'm going to put a little bit of a body on this infant. A big potato, little infant legs, little infant arms. This is hyperrealism here, as you can see. Okay, now the next concept, this is a Freudian type of concept. There's something, we're not sure what exactly, but there's something inside of you here. What is this thing? I don't know, but it's yellow. No, it's not yellow. We're just using yellow. Oh, draw it like a little sun. According to the Freudian model, there's something in you, I'm not sure what it is. Freud called it the it. Really, literally. I don't know what it is. It's just it. That's what it is. It is like all of your internal wantingness for things. And the it, or the id as Freud called it, just wants stuff. It just literally wants a whole bunch of stuff. What does it want? Let's just go through a few of the basics. It wants, let me change colours here. Let's get a bit more exciting with our colours. Well, is this an exciting colour? I quite like this colour. It wants food. Give me food. It wants sex. What doesn't want sex? I ask you. Every it in the world wants sex. It wants the shinies. It wants shiny objects. It just wants stuff. It wants power. It wants control. It wants to kill. All the good stuff, all the fun stuff that we're not allowed to do. Okay, so here we have the stuff that the it wants. Now, as you look at the list, some of them, you can get, and some of them not so much. What stands in the way of the it getting all of this stuff? Well, you could just say opportunity, meaning there is no opportunity for the it to get all this stuff. But usually it's rules. There are rules. You can't just go around taking all the food and having all the sex and getting all the shinies, acquiring all the stuff, all the power, all the control, and killing people willy-nilly. No, no, no. And what stands between the it? This is the it here, wanting to come out here and get stuff. Let's put another imaginary little wall here. Let's go with this color. Whoops. There we go. There's a sort of, call it like a conceptual wall between the it and what the it wants. I might just rub out the top. Oops, where are we going here? Let's rub this out here. There we go. There we go. Make it a bit neater. Okay, so the it wants all this stuff. And what's in the way? This sort of, I don't know what you call this, conceptual wall, let's call it. There's a conceptual wall here. There's rules, there's laws, there's lack of opportunity in some cases. This is, just call it rules. When your parent says no, the it wants it, but the rules say no. And this starts to form what we'll call the ego. I'm going to put the ego in the head. It's not really in the head. Well, maybe it is, I'm not sure. We'll put it there. The ego starts to form as a result of the it, whatever it is, who knows, wanting the stuff, but it can't have it. And so the ego starts to form as a way for the it to somehow get the stuff it wants, but in accordance with the rules. Or you could say, if you prefer, in accordance with social convention. So the ego really is social convention in some ways. All right, so once the ego starts to form in relation to the rules, the it still wants the stuff, but it's the ego's job to try and get the stuff. In what way? How? In a socially acceptable way. How do I get food in a socially acceptable way? Well, I ask nicely. How do I get sex in a socially acceptable way? Well, once again, I could just ask nicely, please may I have some sex? The shiny objects, similar. Maybe I have to get a job, earn some money, then go buy the shiny objects. How do I get power in a socially acceptable way? Not very easy. There are ways you could get a job where you have power. How do I kill in a socially acceptable way? Well, it's not very common to kill in a socially acceptable way, but maybe you get a job as, I don't know, you go to Switzerland and get a job in a euthanasia clinic and you can get to kill people in a way that is socially acceptable, or be an executioner if you live in a country where that's still cool. All right, so you can see now one of the other dynamics as the ego forms is that it's forming as a direct consequence of these rules. But, importantly, it's driven by a thing called the it, or the id in German, or in Freud's language. So, one last thing to point out. Let me just get my other color here. Let's put it in like an energy flow. So here comes the it, and it goes up here, and it pressures the ego, and then the ego has to somehow figure out a way to socially acceptably get the shiny, in this example, to gratify or satisfy the internal it. If you didn't have an ego to moderate or modify the behavior, you would just have outrageous antisocial behaviors because it wouldn't be following any rules anymore, just to try and grab all this stuff willy-nilly. All right, there's enough on the ego and the it, or the id, to keep you going. Oh, I should also mention, just as a passing or a final comment, this, in Freudian terms, is called the superego, the rules of the superego, which we'll talk a little bit more about. We don't need the fancy jargon, really. You just need to know what it is in principle. That's it for now. Join me again for another episode where we continue to explore ego formation and how it relates to social confidence. Bye for now.